What's up, guys? Mo here, back for another episode. This one's going to be a little bit different. As you guys know, I've been tearing apart a Subaru engine over here, and I've had to buy some tools that I did not own previous. And nowadays, there's so many options for tools. I mean, I'm just a hobby guy. I'm not a professional mechanic. I'm not even a certified mechanic. So for me to buy a really expensive shop tool doesn't make sense. So that leaves, for most people in the States, Harbour Freight, up here Princess Auto, or Amazon. And I mean, I'm going to tear this thing apart anyways, but I wanted to have a good idea of the health of the engine. So I went and bought myself a cylinder leak down test kit. So this one is a Chinese made model. TU-21 is the part number, but honestly there's a million on the internet. I mean on Amazon. So I'll link the description down below of this exact one that I got, but there's many that look at, I mean, completely identical, probably made by the same people. So with that, let's unbox this thing, take a look, and then we'll give her a rip in the shop. Alright guys, here she is. She's not a thing of beauty, I'll tell you that. The clasps feel a little cheap, like they're going to last 4 or 5 times, but for most people, maybe that's all you're going to use this thing for, to tell you if your engine's good or bad. I don't know. Yeah, just a bizarre part number from Amazon. Chinese made. And here we go. So inside the box, we've got this is the tube that goes inside the cylinder. On this end you've got a quick disconnect. On this end you've got a 12mm connection. They do also sell you adapters, or not sell you, it comes with adapters for 10mm and also 12, so should cover most of them. And then we've got the main unit. This end here is what connects to that line there once you're testing. And then the inlet from your shop air goes here. There's a regulator here and 2 gauges. So the instructions say to hook this up, don't screw this into the cylinder, don't connect it to the outlet here yet. Connect this to your shop air, maximum 100 psi, it'll work from 40 to 100. And then you adjust this regulator until this gauge reaches 0 loss, which is the set position down here. So the idea is you adjust the regulator. Usually I found it's about 28 psi to 30 psi here on the incoming. Will give you 0 loss here. It's basically trying to, this regulator is trying to balance incoming air with a little orifice in here and a slight bit of leakage out the end of the line. And when you have a balance right, 0. Once you connect this up, this will go into your cylinder, and if there's a leak in your cylinder, that's now a path for the air to go, and this will read leakage on this gauge. So in a perfect engine, you'd be down at 0. Most engines always have some leakage, just the way the rings work and the pistons, and the valves never seat quite airtight, so especially not under pressure, so or not under more pressure than 30 psi. So this will normally read in the green, telling you you're good, moderate, not good, high, terrible. So with this, obviously, you're checking for leakage in the valves and the cylinders. So you're going to want to make sure your engine is in the position where the cylinder is. The cylinder is in a position. The cylinder and valves are in a position where both valves are closed for the cylinder you're testing. So top dead center normally. So when both valves will be closed, because otherwise, if one of them's open, you're just going to read the valve being open, which would be a leak. The instructions, I gotta say, actually pretty decent. There's a good instruction sheet that came with it telling you how it's supposed to work, how to set it up. Also a suggested shop air setup with a dryer. And a complete parts diagram on the back. So yeah, under ease of use, that's a definite bonus point for this rig, because normally you get nothing, or you get some, you know, basically rice paper with this big of instructions that tell you to go to a website or you know, cross fingers, good luck, have at it. But yeah, I was quite impressed with the instructions with this, so that's great too. But the only negative is the case, really, at this point. But I mean, really, what do you need? You don't need a leather case for something you're going to use 4 times in your lifetime, probably. So yeah, that concludes our unboxing. So next we'll run it through its paces, and lastly we'll do a score. See you at the engine, guys. All right, so I've got the leak down tester connected to the number 1 cylinder on this Subaru Boxer engine here. And now normally you're probably going to do this in a car, but this one's out of the car already. The timing belt's all off. And the way to do this is when the intake and exhaust valves are both closed. So see how I've got play on both of them right now? That means there's no loading on the valves. The springs are free to do their thing. They're expanded all the way, meaning the valve should all be seated on this cylinder. Another way I can check that is by rotating the cam. See, at this angle, the exhaust are trying to start opening. If I go back a little bit, you can see the intakes on this cylinder starting to open. So right now, there's no tension on this sprocket at all. So both these cylinders are actually in a position where all the valves are closed. So that's the point at which I'm going to test. I've already got the 14 millimeter threaded connection screwed into the cylinder here. And the instructions on this this unit say to fire up the air compressor, maximum 100 psi. With this disconnected, meaning it's blocked off, there's a quick disconnect in here. It's blocked right now. So now what we're trying to do is balance the 2 gauges. So there's a regulator they give you on here. And what I'm finding is it's really hard to get this to balance. I don't know, it's going. Before I tried twice and it either overshot or undershot. So there you go. You get it balanced like this at the 0 on the gauges. Like so, and then it says to hook up the tester. So I'll plug it in. Why is it terrible? Let's try again. About there. See, a pretty bad number there. We're in moderate. Hearing a little bit of leaking out of the intake, a little out of the exhausts. And a little bit in the oil fill tube, so probably a little bit of slop everywhere. Keep in mind you should do this with the engine warm, and this one's cold, so you know, could be part of it. Let's try one more time. Make sure I still got air on the compressor here. Yeah, 100 psi. You see how fairly tricky to get zeroed. Usually it happens at about 28 psi for me on this one. Still in the low moderate, so okay. We'll take that as a reading for number one, I guess, eh? Move over to number three. Recenter the gauge again. This one I'm reading leaking on the intake for sure. Nothing much on the exhaust. Yeah, a little bit on the tube again. So I'm wondering if we're getting higher than normal readings on the rings because the engine's cold. Could be. Okay, we're back in number one over here. Got it set. Definitely loose on both. It's still set to 0 here. Well, interesting. I'm wondering if we just have some, that's the exhaust valves I'm cracking here. And then yeah, it's still balanced. I'm wondering if it's just blowing some crap out from between the seat and the valve and just letting it seal a little better. Let's retest number 3 here. There she is, loose on all 4. Gauges are still balanced. Oh, great numbers. There's the intakes. So if you had bad intakes, valves, or seats on them rather, it would look like this, right? And you can hear the air coming out. And as it seals, you get into the green. If the dial was right down and set, you'd have 0 leakage at all. But that's never going to be the case. You're always going to get something leaking by a valve or a ring. Even on a perfectly brand new rebuilt engine, you wouldn't expect to seal completely, just the way the rings and everything else are. So that's a really good number. So we're actually green on all 4 cylinders now. But that brings me to one part of this gauge setup that I don't really like, and that's these gauges and this regulator setup itself. If your air pressure is good and stable, this seems to give you a repeatable setting. But you saw earlier how every time I took this off, it was in a different spot again. I think the trick is to set this regulator halfway between where the needle dips and where it starts to rise again, and then set it in the center, as long as it's still set in the middle. If you're off, this thing seems to have a really hard time balancing, and if you're off a little bit, it'll skew your result, obviously. So that seems good. That seems repeatable for the air pressure I have in it. So I would test a couple times and make sure you're happy with this gauge setup before you go believing it and rendering an engine useless when it isn't. And the other key is to make sure you're in a position where everything is supposed to be in a sealed state valve-wise. So yeah, I don't know. Would I buy this again? Honestly, I don't know. It's nice having this pass-fail dial. The other nice thing, which is probably important to mention, is that this functions off 100 psi shop air, but you're only putting just under 30 psi into the cylinder, which is good from a safety standpoint. I do have the flywheel here locked with this clamp so it doesn't spin, but when you're inserting air pressure into the top of a cylinder, it's going to want to push the cylinder down and spin the engine. And on an interference engine, especially without the timing belt, or if you have a timing chain on there, you would spin the engine and you could collide with a valve. So I like the fact that it takes lower air pressure. I don't think I even had to have this clamp on here probably, and this thing wouldn't have turned, but you know, safety third. But that is one good point about this setup. But yeah, if you're properly prepared and you know what you're doing, 100 psi into the engine with 200 psi gauges seems to be sort of the old standard. So I don't know. I guess it is what it is. It is what you're comfortable with. As far as quality on this guy, when I first hooked it up, I had air leaking out of this thing from my quick disconnect, and it actually happened to be this fitting here. This fitting was loose. It was really loose. I had to put a 14 millimeter wrench on here and tighten it right down. That stopped that leak. So unfortunately, I can't say the quality's excellent when that happens. But other than that, it seems like a well-built piece of equipment. The gauges are decent. They do seem to have glass on the dials, on the gauges, sorry. It's a 3000 psi or 300 psi hose working pressure. At least it claims to be. That's the only thing stamped on it. No part number, no kind of certification. Just says 300 psi working pressure. So I don't know if we believe that or not, but if you do, then you know that's a good thing. Yeah, as far as usability, quality, because of the leaky fitting and the sort of no-name hose and gauges on here, I don't know, maybe it worked, it did what it was supposed to. I think they probably all are finicky in their usage like that. The other part about the quality, I don't know. It's an inexpensive gauge set, right? But there's no label telling you on the outside what it is except this mini sort of half Chinese made in China sticker. I'll probably put a label on it so I know what's in here. But the case is just super cheap feeling. But I mean, it's a shop tool. I'm glad it has a case, I guess. I guess I shouldn't complain too much. I don't think this case is going to last very long. It does come with 10 and 12 millimeter adapters as well as the 14 on the hose, so that's a good thing. I'm happy to see that. In terms of value, this thing was like 50 bucks. So for a good shop tool like this, that can diagnose your engine for you, and that seems to be a half decent quality. With a case, albeit cheap, and the other adapters, the value is definitely there. It did what it was supposed to do, so yeah. I'm not going to bother doing the math right now. I'll let you guys see the scores at the end. Overall, thumbs up. It's time to tally up our scores. So for this leak down compression tester, we're going to assign a quality rating of 4 out of a possible 5 wrenches. We felt the quality was good enough for what it is. For usability, this is where that setup with the regulator took it down a couple notches to a 3 out of 5. For performance, we're going to assign a rating of 4 out of 5. The tool did what it was supposed to do with once you had it set right. And for the last category, in terms of value, this tool seems to provide excellent value for the buck it cost. It was under $50, so that's great. Thanks for watching, guys. Yeah, hopefully this helps you guys decide whether or not to buy one of these type of gauges. There's many manufacturers that make the same one. Harbour Freight, I think, has a similar one. But there's many more expensive ones out there. But if you're a hobbyist like me and you're not using it every day to diagnose engines, that's perfectly fine. So, yeah. There you go. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have fun tinkering, and most of all, have yourself an awesome day. Catch you next time.